Hi, it's Lola here, Lola Adeshoye. I'm here with Emma Seligman, the writer and director of Shiva Baby, her debut feature film, and Rachel Sennott, who plays the lead character, Danielle, and Dianna Agron, who plays Kim, the wife of Danielle's sugar daddy. So welcome, ladies. So good to have you here.
Thank you so much for having us.
And thanks, Emma, and all of you for creating such an interesting, quirky, eclectic, weird, fascinating movie. And so I just wanted to obviously talk to you about that. It's been getting so much critical acclaim and doing very well by reviews. So Emma, I know that this came from a short film that you did as part of your thesis. Could you just tell us more about where the idea came from? Because it's such a wild thing. I'm like, is this a real story or what's happening?
Yeah, it feels so specific that people have asked me that. I just wanted to make something as my thesis that I felt like I could achieve, and I felt like a one day, one location thing, has sort of been done before as a sort of almost guaranteed thing that you can do for a short and then also maybe a feature. And I just wanted to do something that I felt comfortable in a world that I understood. And I felt like I had enough perspective on my family and my community to write about them authentically. And at the time, there were a lot of sugar babies at NYU. There still are. And a lot of my friends were doing it. And it was just like a huge part of the world there. So I when I made the short, I just thought it would be really funny. I was like, oh, that would be awkward to just like put a girl and her sugar daddy at a shiva. And then I think as I made the feature, it became more meaningful and explored sort of like deeper topics and themes. But that's where it originated. I just wanted something that I understood and that I thought would be funny.
Yeah. I mean, could we just talk about some of the deeper topics and themes and if you intended for it to be, because there's a lot about, identity, sexuality. Were you intentional in wanting to create something that explored those things, or did they just come out as part of the filmmaking and the writing process?
Totally. I think that I think I wanted to be conscious of sort of the main thing that was important to me was coming into your own and a sexual coming of age story as a young woman and figuring out your sexual power and how limiting or how much it can give you. I think that was the main thing that was important to me. And then I just put myself into it in terms of my identity because one, the Shiva is just sort of, just makes that easy. And then two, I think being bisexual and having another thing that makes you sort of feel awkward in your family environment is something that is authentic to me, but also I just thought would allow to have, the Maya character played by Molly Gordon, which I think achieved so much else. So I wasn't like thinking, oh, how many identities do I like want to put in this movie? I just thought about the main one being the sort of sexual coming of age, and then just sort of putting in myself to make it just easier to write.
And as for Dianna and Rachel, how did you get involved in the project? And when you first read it, what did the character, how did the character speak to you?
Well, I was first in the short film version, which was Emma's thesis film at NYU. And so one of her producers reached out to me to audition. And like, even with the short, I just felt like Emma is such a good writer and she wrote such a complicated, funny, messy female character. And so I was so excited. And then she's the best director. And then I was so happy to do the feature version. And I feel like that was a really rare experience to do the short and then come back for the feature. So yeah, it happened sort of naturally, but.
And how about the character though? What attracted you to her?
I would say that I think I relate to a lot of the things that Danielle is going through. I feel like she sort of has a coming of age story in one day. And I feel like I was experiencing a very drawn out version of some of the things Danielle is going through in my life from when we shot the short to when we shot the feature. Emma was talking about like female empowerment and like feeling in control of your sexuality. Like, I think I went through a lot of relationships at the end of college and right after where it felt a lot about control and trying to be the person who cares less. I think there was also that pressure from my family of like, you're graduating, like, what are you doing? You're like tweeting about getting fingered. We're confused. We're like, it was too much. And so I think I feel that. And then Danielle also, it's like that heightened pressure on like, she's eating too much, she's eating too little. And I feel like as I was going through this process, I was like trying to find control in my life in food and like really being controlling over what I was eating, whether it was like nothing or like a ton. So I really feel like there was a lot of things in Danielle's journey where I felt like I was going through that too, but just like a very drawn out process.
So you really related to the character. And Diana, how about you?
So I had seen the short film, and that to me, plus the script, plus meeting Emma, it was just very undeniable. Emma's so talented, Rachel's so talented. I knew that Fred and Molly and Polly were attached. So it was like, I mean, please, if you'll have me, like, obviously, yes. Although I do remember talking to Emma, we met at this coffee shop and being like, but Kim is like, she could also be Jewish.
Yeah.
And kind of the one line in the film about like, I think her dad is Jewish and like, that doesn't count. Like, is she half, is she whatever? That kind of played into the film from Emma and I's original conversation, which I think is just funny is like, you know, growing up with my mom converted before my parents got married. And that is kind of something that is funny is like, well, is your mom Jewish? And like, how Jewish? Was she born Jewish or did she convert? It's just like a funny little thing that has been a part of my upbringing and kind of noise in the background. So it was fun that made the film and was involved in the character.
Yeah, so I remember, I think Danielle's mum saying, oh, you know, she's the shiksa wife. Sort of. You know, are you all Jewish or you all come from a Jewish background? Am I right in saying that?
I'm not. I grew up Catholic in a big like Italian family, but Emma and I actually had a conversation about it when I first auditioned for the short film, and we felt like there was a lot of crossover between our families, and the way that we grew up in terms of like a big family with a lot of loving criticism, but criticism and like the food thing I was talking about before, I felt like it's either too much or too little, but they're definitely moderating it. So I feel like we related over a lot of that.
Well, it was interesting from my perspective. I'm not Jewish, you know, my parents are Nigerian, I was born in the UK, but a lot of similarities, you know, when we're talking about family dynamics, we're talking about cultures and religions and then these ideas of what you should do. And I mean, African parents are big on like, what are you doing with your life? What are you doing after college? Why are you doing that? And then big on how much do you weigh? You're eating too much, you're eating too little, and all this stuff around who you are and how anxiety producing that can be. So I really appreciated the universality of those themes, even though it was, you know, based around a sort of a Jewish environment. I think there's so much in there that speaks to lots of other people's experiences within different communities.
Thank you. Yeah, that makes me so happy to hear whenever someone tells me that from a different community or a different culture. And then it also kind of makes me sad that like women just can't have it no matter what culture we come from. There's always just too much food moderation and like extra questions and pressure. And it makes me really happy that, you know, everyone or a lot of people seem like they can relate despite not being Jewish. So that makes me happy to hear that.
You're welcome. So one thing I found in the film, just there's a lot around the concept of people's expectations. Exactly kind of what we were just saying, you know, in terms of how you look, what you're doing and who you're with and who you're married to and what they do and all of that kind of thing. I mean, again, was that something quite purposeful that you wanted to highlight? Because it seemed like there's this real interplay between the public self and how you appear to other people in your, whether it's your parents or wider community, and then your private stuff and what's going on with you. And as women, I think this is something we all really can struggle with at times. So I just wanted to get all of your sort of take on that, really. Emma.
Yeah, that was definitely something that I wanted to try to focus on. I think that for me at the end of college, the pressure from my family or my community to be like, a stable, career seeking young woman with, a future husband, searching for a future husband or partner, but preferably husband, ahead of me. And just like making sure I was making enough money and how and whatever, like that felt like one pressure. And then I felt like this other pressure to be like an independent, sexy young woman who like doesn't care what anyone thinks and does whatever she wants. And to me, those are two opposite things. And I felt them kind of coming in on each other and contradicting each other. And that is what gave me so much anxiety going into just the regular anxiety of graduating and going into the world. So I definitely wanted Danielle's sort of private version of herself that feels in control and sexy and empowered, and then the like little kid version of herself in the way that her parents see her to definitely contradict and to kind of cave in on her for sure.
Dianna or Rachel, do you have anything to add to that?
I was just gonna say the like trying to do what real life is like. I feel like I really did connect with what Emma was saying. Like, I feel like I was raised religious and I was so like, I'm not gonna have, I mean, it's a different thing, but I was like, I'm not gonna have sex till I'm married. Like, I felt I like had this like very specific mindset. And then I went to school in New York, and then I felt like this all of a sudden this new pressure to be like, I like own my sexuality, I can do whatever I want, like, and then kind of like these two conflicting things, and then being like, wait, what do I actually want? And trying to like balance those and also be like, have everything, like what Emma was saying. So I definitely related with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt that big time. I think, I was kind of coming of age publicly because I started Glee at 22 years old. And so as I was discovering who I was as a person, my sexuality, everything, I also felt like that had to be very removed from the public. Yeah. And then, at times there would be stories written about me that were completely untrue, dating this person, doing this thing. And I remember at the time I had a team of people that was like, oh, you just have to let that happen. That just happens. Whatever, if you comment about it, then it'll just become a bigger thing. And so really struggling with all of these dynamics at play where I'm like, I'm here to do my job. I want, it's just like different kind of trying to make everyone happy and yet sometimes sacrificing my own happiness. And that, as I've gotten older, is something that you can kind of toss away. And, but I do remember feeling like so at odds with some of the things that were happening between my personal and professional life, and having to move through those things as best as I could,
Yeah, that's a really, really interesting perspective. And one of the things I really felt from watching the film was that there was always this sense that if somebody found out the truth, everything would implode or explode, right? And so I think, Dianna, with what you're saying, speaking to that, is like part of this navigating is, if people do find out something about me, or if this happens, what will this do to my life?
Yeah.
And again, I think that's a very universal theme about those dualities of ourselves and our experiences. But Emma, I just wanted to go to sort of, the writing of the film, going from a short to a feature. How did that work, and how did you deal with that?
It was difficult. I knew I wanted to keep it in one day and one location for budget. I just knew we weren't going to be able to raise that much money. So it was creatively constricting, but it just took many tries. I think tonally, I think that was the hardest thing, was to try to fill up the story with enough going on that an audience would feel like they wanted to stay in this house for the day, but then not have so much happening that it kind of leaned into slapstick or melodrama territory. I wanted to try to keep a sense of it being grounded or naturalistic. So I think it was just a lot of dancing between what can I get away with while still making us feel really connected to the character. And a lot of that was just like in Danielle's choices. And up until the very end, right before we were shooting, I added details, and I added that entire upstairs bathroom scene, like only like I think like a few weeks before we shot. So it was just tricky because I was like, I want the audience to connect with her and believe like they are her, but also like how much can you get away with doing at a shiva, in one day. So it was tricky. It was a little bit of a dance, but I feel extremely grateful that I had Rachel and our producers to read multiple drafts, draft after draft, giving me notes and thoughts and just letting them be sounding boards for me, to figure stuff out. And I think Rachel particularly being, the person that knew Danielle the most, beyond anyone. So I had a lot of support for sure.
Yeah, that's really cool because basically sort of one afternoon really, isn't it, when everything happens. Yeah. And so much happens. Like I'm watching this movie going, wow, it's getting crazier and crazier and crazier. But somehow I never thought, oh, what's happening outside? I was always fascinated by, well, what is really going to happen next within this small environment, and in these few hours. So that was really good job for being able to do that and hold everyone's attention in that way with such a, constrained physical space as well, and a bunch of different weird people.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And another thing, the music, so I don't know how you would describe this. Is this a comedy to you? It's drama? Because the music was very much horror movie type music, and that itself added so much to it. So could you talk a bit about your decision making around the music?
Yeah. Well, for me, I always, just call it a dramedy because I feel like that lets you do whatever you want. If you're like, it's a dark comedy, it could be anything. It could be musical if you wanted it to be. I just wanted the film because, again, the constrictions of all of these things, I wanted the audience to be as engaged as possible. So I thought about how to sort of make it different from any other romantic comedy or, like coming of age dark comedy. And anxiety kept playing a part throughout every single part of the filmmaking process in terms of like cinematography and when we were shooting and also editing. And then when it came to music, we started working with our incredible composer, Ariel Marks, who comes from a string background. And I knew I wanted something based in strings so that it kind of felt in the world of like klezmer, like Yiddish klezmer music, but not totally like Fiddle on the Roof, like just sort of inspired. And she just sent me a sound library of violin sounds, and I just highlighted all my favorite ones. And she knew I was going for something anxious. That's what I kept saying. And then once I sent her all of my favorites, she just told me like, that's a horror score. So you want a horror score? And I was like, I guess that's I never thought of it that way because I don't watch too many horror movies. But yeah, that's just what we ended up doing.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's a very cool dynamic to the movie as well, for sure. And Dianna, talking about horror, your character towards the end, like, she gets a little evil. And, I'm just wondering, like, obviously, what was going through your mind as the character as the movie's going on? And I mean, did you look at the phone? What happened?
Did I look at the phone? What do you think? I think what was so great about this character and the journey throughout is I think she really wants to believe that everything is okay until she absolutely knows that it's not, and I loved that about her. I loved that about the journey. The bracelet is definitely a turning point. Things get much weirder from that point on. And, I think also too, when I think about my friends as new parents and watch them operate in the world as a new parent, like you are exhausted, especially when you are working and wearing many hats, etc. And our darling baby it was really so very hot in the house, and our baby really did not want to be there. And I also, so like everything kind of helped me with that because everything was, hot, crying baby that wouldn't stop, everybody in this tight space. It very much made it easy to be that character. And yeah, poor Edgar. Edgar's, I mean, that wailing in the end is just him doing his thing. And I think we had just a few moments where Edgar, you know, in the kitchen, that was one moment where he really quieted down. We finally found his song. Also, it was just so funny that like our baby was, you know, wearing a dress for probably the first time in his life. But yeah, the wheels on the bus will always have a interesting, special place in my heart, because that was the one thing that he latched onto, and I think that was the last day of shooting with him.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it was so well written. It was like completely there, you know.
Thank you. And one quick question just about how you did shoot it. Like, how long did it take you? And, you know, what was that process like?
I feel really lucky that I started working with my cinematographer like very unconventionally a year out from shooting. I think that me and my producers, because we were so nervous about raising money, we were like, we should just have all our department heads and everything in order and the house in order, so that when we can't have money, we'll be like, look, everything's set up. I don't know if that ended up helping us or hurting us, but our incredible cinematographer, you know, and none of us on this movie were, including the actors, including everyone, were paid well. She gave me a year of her life to start watching movies every now and then. And that's sort of where the sort of turning point of like, you know, we were looking at like Obvious Child and Kissing Jessica Stein and all these other sort of like Jewish-y rom-coms together. And then that's when the two of us were like, I don't think we can shoot this like a rom-com. I think we have to shoot this in a different way. So I think her and I started watching a lot of anxiety-driven films or thrillers. Between the two of us, I think we sort of developed a shorthand with references that made it into the movie. And she's just an incredible person and very calm and kind and sweet. And she and me and our assistant director, we worked with a Lego house, so that before we got into the house, we knew every single shot around every single corner. And it also helped us prep with extras and stuff, because again, we didn't have money. So my producers were like, well, why don't you just turn it a little bit and then we don't see into that room where there should be 30 people. It was like a very collaborative process between me and Maria trying to express our vision, and everyone being like, well, we can't afford that, or we only have that actor for that one day, etc. So yeah, it was a very involved process, and I feel extremely grateful that we had Maria for it.
Yeah, that's super awesome. Sounds like you had really great people. So one last question for all three of you before we go. What would you want people to take away from the movie, and what do you want people to take away, Rachel and Dianna, from your character? So I'll start with Dianna.
Oh no, I was hoping it was I really love it when you can just lean on other people's answers. That was so well put. Exactly that. I mean, when I watch this movie, I just think it's just such a fun ride. You can see yourself in so many different characters, and you can kind of have, you know, reflections of your family or your parents and what roles that you serve, and that love wins.
I'm not laughing at you. That love does win. Sorry, that was a maniacal laugh.
I just loved our ending. I love like the last shots of our
yes.
But I don't like, I hope that's not giving away too much. As far as my character, I mean, I don't really know what you're supposed to take away from him. Trust until you can trust no more, and then have interesting conversations at home. I don't know.
I think that just speaking to what I was saying before about sort of like the contradictory pressures put on young women, I think are ridiculous and horrible and hysterical. And I just hope that young women can like feel seen in that and feel a little relieved and entertained. And then I hope other people can just see it and maybe understand a little bit of how universal it feels for everybody in that moment in time.
See, Emma should have gone first, because I agree
with And how about you, Rachel?
Okay, I want to say I do agree with everyone else. And then I think you compared the movie to, you said this is like a horror soundtrack, and I think I want people to see that it's sometimes a horror movie to be a woman and balance, and balance all of those different identities in yourself. And from my character, I think I would hope that young women would connect with her and her journey of trying to balance all these different identities and parts of herself.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed talking to you, and I'm really excited to see what all of you do next, and what continues to happen with this film as well. And thank you for creating something so wonderful and enjoyable for us all, especially during this time that we're in now. So hopefully I'll get to speak to you again soon, and thank you for your time.